Hi friends, welcome to the Be Real Babe show. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy and I am the host of the show. And you guys, I am so excited to get started on this new show. For those that don't know, which is a spin-off of the Be Real Babe podcast, which is my main show that you can find on Rumble, Apple, and Spotify. But you guys, I'm starting on a new adventure and decided that on YouTube only, I was going to take a piece of my podcast and throw it over here exclusively. And that is what you're seeing today, the very first episode. Now, this is going to have two series to the show. We're going to have Keeping Up with Canada, which is a continuation from the show where we're going to talk about Canadian politics, anything that's going on in Canada, the best that I can from what I know from my angle. And then we're also going to have a series called Internet Insanity, where I bring you some crazy shit that I found during the week on the internet. Again, this is episodes and series that stem from the podcast, and I want to bring it over here exclusively and be able to bring this to you weekly. Now, there is some reasons, many reasons why I'm doing this, but number one is that, especially talking about what's going on in the world, today is very hard. The podcast airs a month after it has been launched, so I just felt like I was not able to keep up to the time. So we are going to do that now, where it's a weekly recap, couple days or a week before it's launched. So excited to get started, you guys, and thank you so much. This is all new to me. I have no idea how to do a YouTube channel. This is all new. I've just been posting the podcast on here, so please be patient while I work through this, and thank you guys so much for listening. And if you are interested in hearing the first segment on YouTube only of Keeping Up with Canada, I've got 5 topics that I'm going to bring to you today, especially on the heels of the Liberal leadership race ended today. That's why I waited today, and launching tomorrow. I'm crazy, you guys. But if you are interested in listening, please stick around and let's jump right into it. Okay, babes, let's get into it. Okay, so as mentioned, if you want to go back to learn about the other parts of Keeping Up with Canada, you can go to the Be Real Babe podcast and go to episode 211, scroll through, and you'll be able to find where I go through all the past topics I have talked about on there. And definitely wanted to come onto the podcast more with more research and all that kind of stuff. And going into the series, I am going to do that. I'm going to bring you guys articles that I've read and generally want to get your guys' opinion on what you think, because I feel like we're all getting misled all the time on social media, and I am not saying I know anything. If you've watched the show, you know I do not claim to know anything. I just want conversations to be started, and I think that if we don't talk about this stuff, we're going to end up more confused and more angry. So I definitely wanted to keep Keeping Up with Canada, a segment that I'm constantly doing and paying attention to. But like I said, I felt like a month's time, a lot of things changed. I didn't feel like I was as up to date. And I just kind of wanted to have it in shorter form content. So hopefully going forward, we'll have 3 to 5 topics of what I've read, some articles that we'll go over. And I really would love to hear your opinion, you guys. Again, I'm not sure. I'm very aware that I have my own lens and my own viewpoint and my own politics and my own thoughts, and I'm really hoping this year to be able to just be more open to understanding, and hopefully you are too. So let's just jump into it. And again, guys, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of new stuff here that I haven't done before, so bear with me while we get going. So I had a couple of things I wanted to talk about today, and I didn't really know how to start it off, but basically I wanted to start off talking about the tariffs with America and how it's getting really blamed right now on Trump. And I'm not saying that I enjoy these tariffs, and I'm not saying that I think it's the right thing, and I'm not saying I'm not pissed about them as well in my own respect, but to blame where Canada is right now on strictly on Trump, I think is just a disservice to Canadians. And we really, have your opinions, of course, but we really also need to focus at home and what's going on. And this kind of brings me to the first article I want to go over here. The Hudson Bay Company files for creditor protection and intends to restructure. So this was posted on March 7th in the Canadian Press. Right off the bat, the headline's telling you cite significant pressures, including Canada-US trade war, declining foot traffic, right? So just want to show that there's already struggles going on in Canada with one of the biggest hubs here. So Canada's oldest retailer, Hudson Bay Company, has filed for creditor protection and intends to restructure the business. The department store that dates back to 1670 says it's been facing significant pressures, including subdued consumer spending, trade tensions between the US and Canada, and post-pandemic declines in downtown store traffic. So, again, just really want to reiterate, you guys, that it's not just the tariffs, because again, by the time this post is back and forth when things are going to happen. China's now doing it right. So yeah, just reiterating that I don't think it's just what's going on with the US. There's a lot predating a lot of other stuff going on. So I just really wanted to bring that home a little bit here. The department, while very difficult, this is a necessary step to strengthen our foundation to ensure that we remain a significant part of Canada's retail landscape despite the sector-wide challenges that have forced other retailers to exit the market. The CEO of Hudson Bay Company. More than ever, it is critical that the Canadian businesses are protected and positioned to succeed. As part of the filing it made with the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice on Friday, the Bay said it was exploring several strategic options to strengthen its business and said it would not make promises but committed to preserving jobs while possible. While the process can lead to the sale or closure of a business, the Bay appears intent on avoiding these possibilities and keeping much of its sprawling footprint alive. There's 80 locations that sell everything from apparel to houseware. I think we've all, been to the Bay. We're all kind of familiar with that. They, predate all of us, obviously. So yeah, and again, I'm not saying that tariffs are not a problem, but I do want to kind of point out, were people really going to these stores as much as they used to, and again, not going back to Amazon or anything like that, but, is that part of the problem? Is it that people just aren't interested in doing it anymore? Is it maybe too expensive? Or what are the reasons and the declines? And again, I'm not saying that tariffs aren't a problem. I'm just saying, are these the reasons to really say right now that these stores are struggling? If these things just came in, and again, we've known about these since November. So, I'd like to know why we knew about this stuff in November and we haven't, to this day, as far as I'm recording this episode, have done much to do anything about that and fix that and prepare. From what I've seen, there's been a lot of talk, but I'm not sure that anything has really been done. And the reason why I feel that way is because I believe, and my hope truly is, that if we do the things that are requested, that they do get dropped. So I think maybe part of me were hoping that we would have come with a plan, as I'm just saying it, but implementing it and showing that we're actively trying to make things better and secure the border. And I'm going to go into that on the podcast a little bit more, just more towards the fentanyl crisis. So make sure to watch that in the coming months. But, what is it that he's upset about? And, and just some things that I find super interesting. I find of course, I love seeing Canadians be patriotic, but I don't love that it's being patriotic into the hate of Americans when it's really it's above that, it's not about Canadians hating Americans. It's, maybe being disagreement, but we don't have to hate each other. Can we come to the table and talk about stuff? So I personally obviously do not love tariffs, but it's making people move. It's making a difference. I think for me, I just wonder, is there other ways that we could have dealt with this? Could we have given it more time? But again, he's been in office for 8 years and it's just gotten worse. So I guess you could argue, is he pushing Canada to have an election because he wants one too, just as much as the Canadian government? I don't know. And this is where it's all kind of leading up. It's okay, these tariff threats are coming in. They're coming in from Trump. Now, as of yesterday, I believe I read that they're coming in from China. There's a full-on trade war going on in the world, and our government is prorogued again. And they're also went to the courts, and it did not exceed power, apparently, allegedly. And that just kind of blows my mind because and again, I don't know as much about it, so please educate me. I definitely want to learn more. It's hard always trying to look at this stuff and find out the real reasons, but it's kind of crazy to me that we're in the middle of a trade war where they're saying, it's not a good time to do an election, but it's a good enough time to stop Parliament altogether. These individuals haven't been working for months, predating 2025 here. What is going on? I feel like at this time, there's things happening. But things that need to happen are happening outside of the Parliament without them sitting down and talking, specifically what we're going to talk about a little bit today, but not too much because this literally happened today. And I actually had an article about this and I've just been so stressed about putting this new show out. And I was like, just fucking put it out. Don't delay it. Just record it and post it tomorrow. It is what it is. It'll grow. Don't stress. But obviously talking about the Liberals and Carney, I actually had a article about that I want to read you guys and jump into that deeper in the next following series of this segment. But to me, it's okay, so you're telling me that the Liberal Party's in so much chaos that we need to stop government while we're in the middle of a trade war, which you've known since, again, 2024. But it's everyone's like, how dare you call for an election, when most Canadians are like, yeah, we don't give a shit, we need an election, because it's not going to end well, some of us feel, with this government at the realm, because unfortunately other administrations don't really like them, and allegedly some other administrations own us, and that's kind of scary if you think about it, if you really kind of dive deeper into that. And I don't want to, I don't love it, I hate it just as much as you guys do. But kind of going back before we jump into Trudeau and Carney here, but and I have a bomb at the end here, an article reading about some FOI emails that came out about Teresa Tam, so definitely stick around for that one. But just going back, like, I love seeing the patriotism, but I think what blows my mind is, why all of a sudden are we patriotic now, and why weren't we already trying to buy from Canadian policies and stuff like that? Like, I'd really like to know. Sorry, there's just something on my computer interesting, the notes that are coming up here. I'd really love to know. Sorry guys, we're trying these whole new things in Riverside, so stick with me, don't mind my scrolling. But the patriotism to just buy Canadian now is kind of crazy, and if you've just continually looked over the last couple of weeks of how you could strictly do that, and that wasn't maybe in your life where you're already doing that, you know, why now? I understand kind of in a sense, because it's like, okay, we're going to stick it to them, but I don't think it's going to stick it to them as much as you think it's going to. I don't know, just personally. And again, I just like to know, like, yeah, our bottom dollar is going to be, and money is definitely going to be hurting us. Don't get me wrong, and it's going to hurt business. But a couple years ago, the Canadian government and a bunch of people were wanting a bunch of us exiled and hated on, and our rights were actually being taken away, where we couldn't travel, and people were forced to take, which we'll talk about in upcoming, don't worry, forced to take a medical procedure that they weren't comfortable with, and now injured, which will be on the podcast as well this season. So how all of a sudden now are you being patriotic and standing up for Canadians and, you know, all of that kind of stuff? I guess I know why, because the government told you to, and that just makes me sad. It makes me so sad, because that's when rights were actually being infringed, and it's like, now you're mad because your pocketbook, which rightfully so, like, I don't like it either. But I also don't like the fentanyl crisis. I don't also like the mass immigration without, you know, things being point, check, and balances. I don't love the massive government corruption that has happened, which I've talked about on past series of this episode on the podcast, that is uploaded on Rumble, Apple, and Spotify if you want to go back and see them. And it's on YouTube as well, so you can go back to the podcast playlist, and that'll be on there for season 8 and 7, 6, and I think 5 as well. No, sorry, I think it started in 6. So definitely go back, and we've talked about this, like, predates Keeping Up with Canada series for sure. But there's just so much government corruption and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, I understand wanting to buy Canadian. I think we should have been supporting local as much as possible to begin with. Personally, I guess my mistake for thinking that I should only think about that when the government says to. But at the same time, it's just like, but you're still going to use things like Facebook and Instagram and all of those, like, meta platforms, TikTok, where that's all down from the States. You know, you're still going to be using all those services, but just for groceries, you're going to stick it to them. And, you know, I think I just feel worse about the BC farmers, which I need to dive into deeply now that I'm back on and after my break here, and see what's going on, because I've heard that they're going to be affected the most with these tariffs. So I definitely want to dive into this more. And I'm not saying that these don't suck, and I'm not saying I don't hate them. What I'm saying is that I just really do not understand, and I think there's like a little bit of mismanagement with anger when it's going to America and Trump. And now what, are you going to stop doing buying stuff from China as well because of all the tariffs that are coming in? Like, you know, I don't believe Canada can self-sustain itself. I think this is why, you know, a lot of stuff has to be look internal, but we do rely on trades and stuff. And so I really hope this ends soon. And unfortunately, leading into this, I don't know that it's going to get better with Carney as a leader, and who knows, we'll talk about this in the coming days of when he's going to switch over to prime minister, because I'm really going to be curious of when that happens. And again, just back to Trudeau's language, I find is super interesting. But I also want to share here another article. And again, I'm getting this off mainstream media, you guys, because I do think it's important to share that so we can talk about it, because whoever's listening, you know, I don't want people to think, oh, well, I'm just, you know, this right-wing conservative, and I'm only, like, this is from mainstream media, which is funded by the government. So allegedly, Trudeau did not exceed powers to prorogue Parliament court rules. This is from the Canadian Press, again, from March 7th, 2025. A federal judge dismissed a legal challenge of Justin Trudeau's move to prorogue French immersion, mouth. Parliament concluding the Prime Minister did not exceed boundaries of his authority. 2 Nova Scotia men had asked the federal court to declare current suspension of the Parliament illegal because there must be a reasonable justification for hitting a pause button, which, like, I completely agree. Like, what is going on? You guys are falling apart. Pausing was not it. It's just time to get out. David McKinnon of Amherst, Nova Scotia, and Eris Lavranos of Halifax sought an order setting aside Trudeau's January decision to invite Government General Mary Simon to exercise her power to prorogue Parliament until March 24th. And this has gone through, guys, and we're still through it. So today, as I'm recording, it's the 9th. This will air tomorrow on the 10th. So we still got a solid 2 weeks, and now we're just finding out what that's going to look like and when it's going to be passed over to Carney, and is a vote going to happen? I guess we'll see. Federal lawyers argued that Trudeau's advice to Simon was not subject to review by the courts and that ultimate judgment rested with the voting public. Agreed. In a ruling made public late Thursday, Federal Court Chief Justice Paul Crampton said the courts do not have a role to play in reviewing the advice. It is important it is exercised to maintain public confidence in the institutions of government. However, he concluded the applicants failed to demonstrate that Trudeau exceeds limits established by the written constitution, unwritten constitutional principles, or any other legal limits. On January 6th, Trudeau fought back tears. As he announced plans to resign as Prime Minister once a new Liberal leader was chosen. He was still hanging out. Guys. Where'd he go? He didn't really go anywhere. He was still making choices. He was still saying things. So I'll be very interested of what happens in the next coming weeks. I have no idea. We've got a couple options I think was going to happen, but TBD. Let's see how this goes. But Trudeau also said Simon had agreed to his request to prorogue Parliament, wiping the legislative slate clean and pausing business of House of Commons and Senate. He said prorogation would allow for a reset of Parliament, which has been largely paralyzed for months as the Conservative pressed the Liberals to hand over documents relating to misspending on the Green/Tech Fund. So let me get this straight. He wanted to take a pause on them looking into where all the money was going, allegedly, that was mismanaged and lined the pockets again of more politicians. He wanted to pause on that. And he also refused to hand over stuff. And the RCMP also refuses to look into it. And even if they do, like, what does that matter? What actually happens? Unfortunately, I don't know. So I'm really glad to see a lot of, like, partisan, like, people groups, volunteer groups going forward and trying to bring federal lawsuits. I mean, it's so hard. We even heard, and I want to jump into this more, you know, obviously as Trudeau's on his way out, and I said this back in season 8, you guys, that he is going to try and put in people all over the place so that no matter what happens, Pierre's going to get cock blocked in every single fucking area. I mean, I hope not, and that's why I think we all have to get involved and stay involved and be very vocal. But like I said, he's going to knock shit out. I think a lot of people, and what I'm hearing is what they're worried that what's going to happen is that Mark Carney is going to get in, which he's obviously been voted in and as a Liberal Party as of today. So we'll see where that goes. But some people are worried that he's either A, not going to appoint himself and leave Justin Trudeau in there and call Emergencies Act, and then nothing can happen, kind of like, because they're in a trade war, are they going to be able to then put the Emergencies Act, some people are saying, as worst case martial law, which I really hope not, and I'm not going to put any attention to that. Let's hope not. I mean, possibility, always keep that in mind, but let's hope not. Let's hope the good guys are hopefully going to be out there doing the right things, and if not, we'll deal. There's also conversation of putting himself in, obviously, and then pulling the Emergencies Act, and then no non-confidence vote. There's also talk about coalition of all the little parties getting together and forming the majority government possibly, and really pushing Conservatives out even if they do win in the election. You know, there's so much going on, so I'm really going to do my best, guys, to post a weekly update for you every week on this episodes. Keep them to hopefully half an hour, 45 minutes, you know, see how we go. I'll try my best to be a YouTuber, not a podcaster, and more shorter content for you guys. But let's, so I had this article pulled, and I was really hoping to do this a couple days ago, but just with the podcast launching and getting that all done and developing how this show was going to look, and, you know, career and month end and all that kind of stuff. I'm obviously doing this last minute, but I also had this article that I want to share with you guys, before I go to the absolute disgusting one here, about Carney. And, you know, there's been lots, you guys. I suggest you go watch, and find Mario for the North on TikTok and Instagram. He has a lot going on there. I'm also going to share other creators as I go that are doing great jobs. Mr. Sunshine Baby on YouTube, he is giving daily content of what's going on. Great YouTube channel, guys. So make sure you're following this. I just really want to start to get talking and share how I feel about some of these things as well. So Terry Newman, yes, it's a problem. Carney refuses to disclose financials. So Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre offers a sensible solution. So this is something, I mean, there's so many red flags in my opinion. I've talked about this a few times on the show when it comes to the Liberal Party, that it's not just Trudeau, it's the Liberals themselves and who they have ties in. And I want you guys to go and look up these people, you guys, okay? I know that a lot of people that are watching the show probably aren't Liberal. If you are, I hope you're listening to this with an open heart and open mind and understanding where I'm coming from. But I think it's important to look into these individuals. I wanted to get into this deeper because I don't know how the semantics, but like, he's never been in the House. He hasn't done these things. He's not an elected official. And, it's giving 2024 American election here, kind of like with Kamala. We're just putting in someone that didn't get voted in and, allegedly doesn't have a good track record. And so there's lots of red flags, but immediately it's just like, okay, so push out everybody else and he's going to be this savior. It's like, why? And I have said several times before that I thought the next pandemic would come as some sort of climate lockdown. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the push that Carney does, because I've seen a lot of like him rebranding the carbon tax. But anyways, we'll get into this. Let's look at this article. Friday morning in downtown Toronto, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre told those gathered at news conference that there's currently a serious problem with Canada's Conflict of Interest Act when it comes to party leadership candidates, specifically Mark Carney, who will be likely crowned Liberal leader on Sunday and eventually Prime Minister. Carney has not tested politically but holds 2 foreign passports and has refused to disclose any financial interests he holds until he is legally required to do so. Unlike other leadership candidates, Carney has never held public office, so any potential conflicts of interest will go unexamined until he is Prime Minister. Poilievre proposes to close what he calls the Carney loophole that currently exists in the Conflict of Interest Act. In 2006, the Act established conflict of interest and post-employment rules for public office holders. Those rules are necessary to ensure that the public servants are not exercising their power to further their own private interests or other relatives, friends, or say former colleagues. I mean, cool, but again, we have talked about how many unethical things the Liberal government does and Trudeau has done. Again, I'm trying not to be one-sided here, but like, the Liberals have been in Parliament in power for 8 years. So it's really hard to dig up what's bad on Conservatives when Liberals have been in the most Canadian, for the most part, Canadians have had dealt with Liberals. So it's hard to find it. And like, there's just so much. So yeah, but even if they do get in, they do get investigated. I mean, what actually fucking happens, right? As it currently stands, the act requires public officers of office holders, including elected members of parliament, to provide a confidential report to ethics commissioner within 60 days of taking office, which would include a full report of assets, liability, as well as all income received during and after 12 months leading up to assuming office. These is super interesting because once he takes place, it's still going to be a couple months. So he's going to be in office before we even actually get to find out any of these things, which I find is super insane. How is that allowed? How are we putting someone in office who, we don't know much about, that's only been around for a little bit? And of course they're going to vote because they're scared. So they're just going to vote what looks like new, right? And which I find super interesting. I believe Chrystia Freeland came in second, but I also am very curious how come, I'm going to butcher her last name, but how come they pushed Ruby out? I'd really like to look into that more. Obviously I didn't get deep into it because I'm not really interested. I'm just interested in the final numbers and who ends up taking over specifically in this situation. But like, who exactly, like, where is it okay that someone just comes out of nowhere and now they're all of a sudden going to be Prime Minister of Canada and have the powers to be able to freeze government and pull the Emergencies Act and do all the unethical things we've seen, and with zero track record politically, except for being an advisor to one of our worst economic times ever. So again, I'm just really curious here how this is going to pan out. And obviously this is super fresh and new. So very, very interested to see what this is going to come out to be in the next coming days. I'll keep you posted the best I can. And these are all articles off of mainstream media, guys. So, this is all fed, and it's not great. It's not great. So it's like, what is actually being hidden too, right? Like what can we not find? So to finish up, I think it's super important that we talk about one individual that I don't want to get kicked off YouTube, and I'm going to try and follow the guidelines in this episode. So I'm just going to give information here that I don't love and that I find was super interesting. This is off of donaldbest.ca. It's a bombshell FOI emails with Teresa Tam, and who knows if she'll face a reckoning, but that's what they're hoping for. So let's read this article here. Again, this is from donaldbest.ca. If you guys want to go read the article entirely, I'm just going to read some of it with you. So emails expose secret non-consent. I'm not going to say these words because I get banned on YouTube. Experiments on Inuit children. What else are they hiding? This is written on February 25th, 2025. For 3 years, Canadian officials use Inuit children as guinea pigs for experimental, I'm not going to say those words, things program without parental consent and without the knowledge or involvement of the Inuit population. Let that sink in. I don't think I need to read much more into this, to be quite honest with you guys. You can definitely go into it. I'll read a little bit more, but a lot of the words and terms in this article and on this website are going to get me banned, which I've already got in trouble for using opinions about these type of things. But I really want people to see this, because this was the individual in charge of the pandemic. This was the individual saying we need to do certain things. And this has now come out from Freedom of Information actor for the emails. So just let that sink in. So the shocking revelation buried in newly uncovered Freedom of Information emails is completely unrelated to the blank 19, yet it raises damning questions of the government's approach to public health experiments on Indigenous communities and all Canadians. Across the board. Canadian Chief Public Health Dr. Teresa Tam knew about the ethical concerns. So did other top public health officials in December 16, 2019, emailed to Tam and other doctors. Dr. Tom Wong, Director General of the Office of Population and Public Health at Indigenous Services Canada, explicitly warned them that healthcare workers had serious red flags. Some ethical concerns were raised by healthcare workers regarding the guarantee of a free and informed consent from parents and caregivers, as well as the absence of involvement of Inuit population in the decision implemented process. So this is from Dr. Tom Wong to Dr. Teresa Tam and others in December 16th, 2019. Is this the first time you guys are hearing of this? Because when I was looking this up, this was the first time I was hearing of it. And let me tell you, am I shocked? Not entirely, but I'm disgusted. I really, really urge you guys to go to this website and read the full article yourself. It has the emails. I don't want to take from this journalist, this website's hard work and all of that. There's a deep dive into it. I really want to just encourage you guys and show you a little bit of what's out there, because I truly believe as well, if you just hear it from me, like I'm just talking on YouTube. I'm just flagging stuff for Canadians to look into, to be curious, to have these conversations, to look into this. Because on one hand, I hear a lot of people hate the injustice, hate how people are being treated on the other side. We're not doing too much or in disbelief when we say things like this. It's not disbelief. It's out there. And we have people working very hard to get this information out, and because of our news is banned, all of that, we can't really talk about it. So this is why another reason I wanted to turn this into a weekly thing and a littler episodes, because there's just so much going on. I want to try and keep up to date as best as I can and just pick things out in the media here, even just mainstream media, to show you that things are a little bit insane and we need to look at things with a less emotional lens, with more curiosity, more unity, less division, and really just coming together to figure out what the fuck we're going to do across the board. I'm really sad that it sucks when you feel like you can't have conversations with the other side or people that are so deep into their political ideology. And I'm working very hard personally, even though I am, and I will always be completely transparent in being a right-leaning individual, and I will be voting for Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives whenever that election happens, and I've always been very honest about that. But I will also always try to challenge, and I want to hear honestly from you guys what the challenges are, what you're worried. If you are Liberal, NDP, voting anything else, I do want to hear your concerns. I want to get to the bottom of it. I want to know them, and I want to confront them. I don't want to yell at you, project at you, and I won't be taking that either. So just because I get something wrong, it's just like, I'm just looking at shit. I'm just summing stuff up from my lens and my experience. And I think if we can all come to the table with that understanding, we should be able to come to a way, way better place. That's what I just think personally. But I'm going to wrap it up and leave it there, guys. So going back, understanding that yes, these tariffs suck, and we can talk and hate this, that Trump's doing it. We can also hate our administration for getting us to these places and not having a strong government and being completely paused and in disarray, and say Trudeau did get them there. He is the leader, but every cabinet member that is in there, that is in that party, in the NDP, everyone in there has led us to today. And I don't want you guys to forget that. And that's why I just want a conservative government to go in majority, because I agree with a lot of the things they say, but I think it's time for a complete change. And I think that we just need to give them a break. Instead of just shutting government down for the Liberals to recalibrate, let's give them a term off at the very minimum and see what conservatives do. Nobody's going to be at risk. You're not going to lose your rights. You know, things might change a little bit, but you're not going to lose anything. And maybe in that time, the other parties can go back, chill, reassess, move some things around, and, you know, really think about how what they've done over the last 8 years has impacted Canadians, instead of continually gaslighting us that everything's great, because it isn't. So, and then just remembering, guys, that we pay the government, and they haven't been working for 3 months straight when we're going through stuff, when the world is going through stuff. Liberals, you need to hold your government accountable. Cannot just be conservatives and NDP and other parties trying to hold Liberals together. Get them to get their shit together. I'm tired of this. Like, open back up, have some conversation. All the stuff that's going on is going on in the background and not in Parliament, not in the view of the public. And I fucking hate it. And I just think it's stupid. Also as well, who's Carney? Look into him, right? Let's have some looks into him. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's see who he is. And again, looking into this donaldsbest.ca website, into the stuff that's happening with Teresa Tam. I think it's pretty fucked up, and I think you guys would too. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Keeping Up with Canada on the Be Real Babe show. I just want to remind you, if you are listening, obviously you are, duh, oh my gosh, it's so hard to get out of the podcast mind. I just remind you to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications if you can. And until next time, guys, bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until next time, bye.